When trying to dial in TRT, you've got to not only look at doses, frequency, estrogen, DHT, but you also have to look at hormone kinetics. There may not be an actual dose that is best for you. It may absolutely be the case that you watching, you do not have an ideal TRT dose. Please know that. That in fact, you can dial in on many doses as long as the kinetics, meaning the way the ester operates in your blood, are correct for your body. I want to talk about the hormone surge kinetic, okay? The rise in androgens, what that actually does for a user on TRT. And for some people, that's the only way to dial in, to reverse engineer the perfect rise based on data from experiments. So number one, you know how to dial in. But two, if you confirm that this is you, you could dial in on many doses. Let's talk about the hormone surge you're missing for libido on TRT. Let's break this down. All right, before we start the video, look, boys, Cortex Labs is my company. We're a TRT guidance, coaching, and consulting company. Wanted to announce two things and two discounts on product. Number one, High Dose TRT Mastery has officially launched. It's a video course showing you how to mega dose TRT, achieve cycle level anabolism, but also dial in the libido and the erections. It is down below in the description of this video. It's 20% off, codes on the screen. Go get it. Thank me later. Secondarily, coaching is 50% off. We run these once a year. The code is on the screen. It saves thousands of dollars on the 3 and 6 month program. If you've got to fix sexual dysfunction on TRT and dial in forever, this is what I do. Bring me on board, brother. Let's get it done. Coaching, 50 off. So let's discuss this user. This is a person that came to me running 140 milligrams of testosterone a week. It was testosterone cypionate. This was done with daily injections, intramuscular injections in the delt with a 5/8 inch needle. So it's 140 milligrams a week is 20 milligrams a day. The blood numbers were fine. Total T was 1100. Estradiol was like 37. DHT was 60 something. These are very reasonable numbers. There was anabolism to an extent. There was energy, which was fine. But one thing was missing. As you can imagine, libido and erections, okay? Really no libido, no desire for sex. Erections at nighttime never ever happened. Spontaneous erections never ever happened. User had to use Cialis to have erections for penetrative sex. And even then, so libido wasn't engaged, had to focus in order to climax. Just a total fucking disaster. And by the way, for coaching, these are the kind of guys that I get. They've tried everything. They're sitting on daily injections. They can't dial in. They need help. I immediately knew that we had to change the kinetics and probably change the dose. So we started out at 80 milligrams every fourth day of testosterone cypionate with 100 IU of HCG on injection. And what happened in that transition period from 140 a week doing daily injections as the androgens were rising to a higher peak than the guys used to is libido, erection, sensation, climax, all came back. However, every fourth day is a relatively stable protocol. Once that reached steady states, all those positive effects started to decline and users basically back to baseline again. So what did we do? We gapped out the frequency further and increased the dose in 20 milligrams every fifth day. Again, the same thing ended up happening, right? Once we increased everything and the user had a rise in androgens, right? A hormone rise, a surge in testosterone, libido, erection, sensation, climax, all of it came back. Then, once the new steady state was reached on even an every fifth day protocol of 120 milligrams, then the erection started to fail, the nocturnals went away, the libido went south, and the guy was back to baseline. So at that point, like what it looks like, and this is the tricky thing for me to determine as a coach, is that user just needed more testosterone. Okay, so we moved to 150 every 7 days or 5 days, 200 every 5 days, 200 once a week. User just needed more, but there's a point at which continuing to just increase the androgens because you notice that an increase in androgens gives you your sexual function back temporarily becomes unsustainable. Hematocrit, LDL, blood pressure, otherwise issues. So what I had to do in thinking about this is just try to reverse engineer what actually caused the user to have good sexual function. And this is what I found. It wasn't the dose. Okay, there were different doses that induced good sexual function. It was not the dose. This is what I mean when I say you might not have a perfect dose. You may not ever find a dose that you're going to consistently take because it isn't about the dose. It wasn't really the frequency. I mean, the frequency helped, like changing every fourth day and every fifth day certainly helped everything. But again, once steady state-ish came around, user was back to lukewarm. What turned out to be the critical helpful factor was simply the rise in androgens. Meaning, you could put this user on any reasonable dose, and as long as once a week or so there is a significant rise in androgens, after which user went back to a lower end baseline of hormones, he would have sexual function. He'd have it on 60 milligrams, or correction, 120 milligrams once a week. He'd have it on 140 once a week. You know, he'd have it injecting 20 milligrams a day and then just throwing 80 milligrams of prop on top of his protocol randomly. He'd have the sexual function. It was the rise in androgens from a lower end baseline state that restored this person's sexual function. So, in trying to reverse engineer that to determine what was necessary and realizing it's not the absolute level of androgens, it wasn't high doses that caused it. It was the rise from an otherwise lower end state. What finally ended up giving us consistency was 250 milligrams of testosterone cypionate every 7 days. It was a 150 IU injection of HCG on injection day, nothing more. We didn't want to muck the estrogen up or cause that to convolute the protocol. Then we got consistency. Because what did we do? We identified that the user gets good sexual function only from rises in androgens, right? Hormone surges, after which when it levels out, he doesn't have those. If the injection frequency is too frequent, and in this case, every 5 days was actually too frequent, which kind of makes sense because testosterone cypionate has a 7-8 day half-life. We then were able to find consistency just creating the rise with enough of a fall in between that he could go back to that baseline and then just rise again. Now, I mean, 250 is a high dose. Hematocrit ended up being fine and everything was fine. This user is a healthy person, no blood pressure issues or whatever, but it's not going to be like that for everybody. To make TRT work in the doses you might need, which might be boluses of large amounts of testosterone at once, you have to be a healthy person. But what does this say about this whole rise in hormone? That whole dynamic that, like, if it's steady state, it doesn't work. The only thing a person responds to, this guy and many people in these cases, is a rise. What does it say? What else could you do? Well, just to give you an example, another way to have done this would have been, hey, user, keep your 20 milligram daily intramuscular injection. Keep it. You're at 140. You have this stable baseline. And then once a week, we inject 100 milligrams, right? You're on 240 total. You've got your stable baseline. You recreate the kinetics that work for that person's physiology by just injecting an additional 100 milligrams once every 7 days. User could have been on the same protocol of 20 milligrams a day, and then just added 80 to 100 milligrams of test prop like every 5th or 6th day. It would have created the same outcome. User could have been on a baseline of three pumps of transcranial 200 milligram cream with a little bit of HCG, and then added a 70 to 100 milligram injection of testosterone cypionate once a week. It all would have dialed him in, because it's not the dose that mattered in this particular case. It was simply the hormone surge that his body responded to. And then going back to a baseline level where then he could create the same exact surge and stay with great sexual function. All right, so it's just a case study I wanted to bring. I'm going to be doing more client case studies so that folks have a look at the stuff that I'm seeing, which is making me do the content that I'm doing, so that you understand, like, some of these distinctions. It wasn't even the dose. The dose really didn't even matter, man. The guy could dial in on many different doses as long as the hormone kinetics jived with his body's needs. Look, if you're particularly interested in high dosing TRT, there is a way to do it. There's a frequency to do it, and there's otherwise protocol manipulation to make it work incredibly, to enjoy the anabolism of high doses of testosterone, have no side effects, but also get the libido and erections too. I broke this down in High Dose TRT Mastery. It is the newest addition to our roster of products. It is 20% off right now. The code for that is on the screen. This is for people who want to have their cake and eat it too. You want the high doses, the energy, the confidence, the masculinity, and you also want to dial in the sexual function. It is entirely possible. I break down how to do this in this video course. Go get it right now or at livecortex.com. Coaching is 50% off. This is run once per year, okay? The code is on the screen. You can book me for a 3-month program or a 6-month program. You and I are working one-on-one to engineer the perfect protocol for you for sexual function, for energy, for anabolism, to be and stay dialed in. 50% off right now, guys. Code's on the screen. Book me in under a minute. We're on the fact-finding call as soon as the next day, and we do not wait. We start. brother, I'd love to have you on board. Book me down in the description or livecortex.com. All right, my brother in test. It's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. Hope you enjoyed the video. Do me 2 favors. Number 1, like the video, makes a huge difference. Number 2, sub to the channel. Brother, if you're here and anything resonating with you, you're going to love what we put out, and I'd love to have you on board. I want you to enjoy the rest of your day. Kick ass. Have a great time. I will see you for more content soon. And brother, I'll chat with you next time.